Okay, follow along. Why settle for this when you can have this? Before discovering a magical piece of SQL code, that's exactly how I felt. Hey there, I am Jeff, the radio DJ dude, and one feature I really wanted to add to my all 80s flamethrower, XXX80s.com, was the decade double play. Now, sure, any Coding Bozo could pull off 2 songs from the same year. I mean, that's boring. Just like 80s hairdos, I was going big, like my mullet back in the day. I wanted RadioDJ to auto-magically perform the following voodoo within a rotation. Play a decade double play opener jingle with music bed, followed by a voice track to introduce the chosen year, followed by a station jingle, followed by song number 1 from that chosen year, followed by a decade double play jingle with a year shout, followed by song number 2 from the chosen year. Hello? Anyone still there? I know, it's a lot. Anyway, I scoured the forums looking for code to jumpstart my double play dream. Well, nothing. Well, nothing specific. I did find a couple lines which were just enough to feed into ChatGPT to forever change the fabric of online radio. Absolutely no chance that I'm overselling this. Not at all. Now, of course, I'm going to share with you my code, but since I am a bona fide Coding Bozo, I will bring on a Coding Jedi to check my work and just maybe make it better. Extremely doubtful, though. Now, if you could give 2 mitts about this feature, I'm going to show you some other options, give you some other ideas on how you can modify this code to perform tricks aplenty that are maybe more to your liking. And if anything, maybe this video gets nominated for longest winded introduction. We are on the air. So enough blabber blabber. Let's let you put your ear on this crazy thing called a decade double play. And then after, we'll dissect the code and show you how it works. And this is for the year 1989. So go pull on your MC Hammer pants and get ready.
The best music double play.
2 righteous tunes are queued up from the year of the Nintendo Game Boy, the first release of Microsoft Office, and When Harry Met Sally.
Yes! Yes! Oh! I'll have what she's had.
The year?
1989.
XXX80s.
And the first song from 1989 plays. Then we insert this year jingle between the 2 songs.
XXX80s.
Double play. 1989.
And then the second song from 1989 plays. It's a super fun feature for a decade-based format. But if you're not digging the decade thing, you'd rather pull songs based on another characteristic or theme, well, we have some ideas for you too coming up. But first, let's lift that digital hood and take a peek inside of the belly of this digital beast. So this is the SQL that drives the on-air magic. So section by section, since we're using a year to choose our music, I'm telling RadioDJ to look to ID subcategory 129 to select the year. And what does that mean to you? Well, that's my custom voiceover track where I set up the segment and give a little tidbit about the year. So that's what sets the year. And then, which will later influence which 2 songs the code will pull, they're tied to the year of the voiceover track. And this code accomplishes that. And then, section by section, as you heard, there was a segment opener, and this code is pulling from a specific ID in your song's database. This is one file. But if head scratching ensues now and you're like, well, where do I find the ID number? I could pop out and show you real quick. Because I'm the radio DJ dude that cares. So for any track you need the ID number of, you just go to Edit Track and look down here in the lower right-hand corner. There's your ID number that you'd enter into your code. Jumping back, this next section loads the voiceover. Then after the voiceover, there's a next cue in the actual track here that will trigger the jingle. Then we have our 2 songs from the chosen year. And zooming in a little closer, and these are all variables you're going to have to change to match your system. In order to select the right songs, the code is looking in the database for songs in the genre of 143, which happens to be my top 40 genre, and also songs in the subcategory of 2, which is the general 80s subcategory. Once again, your settings will be very different. So you have to look into your database, your subcats, your genres to find the right numbers and plug those in. So after the first song plays, we have this year jingle, which you just heard. That's triggered, which then flows into the second song of the decade double play. And for example, my jingle, which is ID subcategory 130, that just happens to be the decade double play jingle 130. That's why it's important to create new subcategories for a lot of these production elements, so you have more flexibility. In this ID subcategory 129, for the voiceover, you'll see that's decade double play VT voice track. Some of you might ask, well, can't you do that in an event or just program all these individual line items in a rotation? Well, sure you could, but you're going to be stuck with just 1 year. You can only program 1 year by doing it that way. The flexibility of using this code is you just need one line item on your rotation, and it'll cycle through all the available years that you have, which creates a much more randomized or diverse listening experience. So it's not always the same year when this segment comes up. For me, since I'm basing the year on the voiceover track, well, I'm only limited by how many voiceover cues I have. So looking at the decade double play voice track subcategory, well, I've got 10 of them. And you just heard 1989. If we dissect this, you can see overlay file is checked. That's super important whenever you're trying to run an audio element over a music bed. And I have the year filled in, which is entered into the database, and that's the information it uses to select the year for this segment. And then it's really important to set your next start, which will trigger your next element, which happens to be my jingle. And this is my decade double play segment opener, where you heard the production elements and then there's a music bed. Well, right after the production elements run, which let's take a listen.
The best music double play.
So right after the opening production elements, you hear a music bed. That's my talkover bed. And then the next start cues the voiceover. And when you're producing these elements, make sure that you bring the levels of your music bed, your talkover bed down enough so your voice track element doesn't get buried in the music. And then here you could see all the different double play jingles that I have. Once again, it's important to enter the year information so the code knows to pull a jingle with that specific year.
Triple X 80s.
Double play. 1985.
These are how the different intro voiceovers look. Once again, overlay files checked. You have to enter the year information. And then let's take a listen to another dry track. 2 royally rad songs are lined up from the year of the meltdown of Chernobyl, the fade up of the Oprah Winfrey Show, and Top Gun.
I feel the need for speed. Ow!
That high-flying year is
1986.
And you see I have a next start cue right after 1986, and then that will fire off the jingle. Popping back over to the code, it's really important that you have this line, which basically orders your audio files by least recently played. Because the Triple X 80s fax machine is burning up, we'll play one more example of the decade double play.
The best music double play.
2 bodacious songs from the year of the Tasty Bake Oven, Die Hard, and Laser Eye Surgery. None other than the year
1988.
Triple X 80s.
Triple X 80s.
Double play. 1988.
Like I disclosed, I cobbled that code together using ChatGPT because I am an SQL bonehead. Yeah, I am kind of amazed that it works. But since I'm not an expert, I wanted to bring one on. Oh, there he is, coming into focus, crackling on from his super secret computing bunker. 30 feet under the ground somewhere in an East Coast-based city. Here he is. He is the coding guru, the SQL wizard. Even some ladies have referred to him as the coding Casanova. It's none other than Sir Patrick. That's all I've got. So what are your thoughts of the quality of a code produced by the bots?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Not bad. What an incredible testimonial. Not bad. I love it.
We'll take it from the top. So like from the first line is pretty straightforward. That's solid. So we're pre-computing and storing a randomly selected year from the songs table. So for those that don't know, the songs table in the database is where RadioDJ keeps track of every song you have in your library and the relevant information about it, tags and whatnot. We're basically just taking that table and we're pulling out all of your year values and we're filtering it down and getting some IDs out of there. Like you've specifically got between 1980 and 1989. That's flexible. You can replace 1980 and 1989 with whatever year range you want.
Oh, let's put pause there because this is a great opportunity for people who may run other decade-based stations, 60s, 70s, even the 90s. One of the biggest wastelands of music, but hey, no more power to you if you run a 90s station and enjoy those Color Me Bad weekends. But so they could modify this just by changing those years up front.
It's pretty easy. Just replace 1980 and 1989 with whatever your start and end date for your date range that you want, and there you go. Like it'll pick a single random year from between that range.
But just to be clear, and I explained this earlier, it's selecting the year based on, in this code, a file that comes from ID subcategory 129, which is a voiceover queue. That sets everything into motion because this decade double play, which I've already played some samples, it starts with the open. Then I come on with a little tidbit about the years, some random trivia about the years, and then the two songs. So I'm choosing to use that piece of the puzzle to set the year. But let's say somebody wanted to set the year based just on the opener. So then they change that ID subcategory to match whatever the opener subcategory is.
Right, yeah. You can change that 129 to whatever subcategory ID you want. Or even if you don't want to filter by a specific subcategory, you just want to pull from everything, you can get rid of that altogether. So delete from ID subcat all the way to and, just take all that out, and that'll pull from every track you've got in, imported into RadioDJ. It'll pull a year from that whole selection.
What's another area that could benefit from a little dust bustering?
Well, particularly, you've got select statements wrapping select statements, which doesn't need to happen. It's redundant. But I think that's just a quirk of ChatGPT. Beyond that, everything else looks it's pretty straightforward. I give ChatGPT credit and you for the information you fed it, because it's especially just naturally with SQL and with how this is structured, it's a pretty articulate query. And now we're at the meat, which is that first qualifying song from our decided year. It does a little bit of checking to make sure you're not at least duplicating artists in the now playing queue, and there's a little bit of checking to make sure that the song is enabled and that we're incorporating some other specificities for how your genres and categories are set up. So following that where keyword, you can start taking out or putting in filters. If you wanted to do all, our year filter, but we're doing, 1980s love songs, and we wanted to have, heart or love or something, a keyword like that, you would do, for example, you would add and songs.title equals, or songs.title like your word, whatever you're looking for, or a series of words.
So let's explore that other option for this code in a little more detail. So let's call this the keyword double play. And it's the same structure. You could have a segment opener. You could have your voiceover, which you reveal the word that you're going to be matching during this segment. So if we're using the keyword of heart, you modify the code right here. You're still telling it to look in the genre 143, for me, top 40, subcategory 2, for me, 80s, and only find songs that have the word heart in their title. That's what this means. Or enter your word here. Structuring it like this with the 2 percentage signs on either side of the word, that basically is telling the code to look in the database for songs with this word in their title in any position.
That just means that we can have any number of words or characters in front or in back of, like wherever direction that percentage sign is at. Just kind of opens it up, because if you don't have it there, it's going to assume that nothing is after or nothing is before, and it's going to do a more direct match. And so if you have, word percent, then it's going to assume that word is the very beginning of your title. And so if it's not the beginning of your title, you're not going to get the match you're looking for. So make sure you've got those percentage symbols on either end of your keyword or words. And that way you're getting the matches that you're expecting for that sort of filter.
So when we run a query to test this out, you'll see the first song, Boys Dial My Heart, Jingle, and the second song, Heartbreak Beat. Because, once again, those percentage signs are saying heart anywhere. Well, this does check a box. It's not the most efficient piece of code because, unlike my decade double play, where it was one line of code in your rotation and it would cycle through the different years by itself, this you're limited to whatever the word you happen to choose for this piece of code. Maybe other coding gurus out there would come up with a string of code that you could put in here where it references an XML file or some other file with a whole list of words that you choose to sort by, and then it will cycle through those, either randomly or by least recently played. But it is another cool application of this code. You've given people a couple of ideas how to use this. Maybe they don't want to do an 80s decade double play, but we've also revealed a couple of other applications for the code. You could change the years altogether if you run another decade-based format. And then we mentioned the title you could ping on. And if you want to play 2 songs with a similar word in the title, you can use the code for that. Did we talk about, let's say if you want to play 2 female singers back to back? Like,
yeah, so that would be...
Diva, it could be the diva double play.
There you go. So yeah, that would be, again, in the section where we're selecting the actual song. If you wanted to keep the year filter, you can, or you can replace that. That would be songs.gender equals female or male or mixed or not set. Like you can set that up, and that'll just be a single line changed in those conditions as well.
But that assumes folks have actually set up the gender for each track.
You do have to set that up.
Before I even, learned about RadioDJ, I had truly zero experience with coding. Now I have 5% experience, but it was very intimidating. So what do you say to people who are maybe just too scared to even dip their toe in SQL?
Oh man. I know it's easy to say, but don't be. Mm-hmm. This is going to sound a little counterintuitive, but the worst you can do is break it. You're not deleting windows. You're not, I know a lot of times there's a lot of time and effort put into these databases. So just make sure if you're unsure and not feeling confident, make sure you got a backup of your database. But once you've got a backup copy, you can just stick your hands right in there and do whatever you want and just reinstate your backup if you really, really break something. So you've got a free sandbox to play with here.
And I think the more you do this, the more familiar you obviously get with it, but the more you're able to realize kind of your broadcasting dreams, because a lot of these ideas I had in my head, and I had no idea how to pull them off in RadioDJ, because RadioDJ doesn't give you this functionality baked into the software. But the great thing about it, it gives you the flexibility to use code to even make the software that much more feature-rich. And it's doing things that probably other pay-to-play software don't even offer. So that's why it's worth the time to confront your coding fears and just, like you say, try things out. Another great resource is in the forums. A lot of this code was cobbled together by code other broadcasters are using successfully. And that was kind of the backbone. And that's the thing. There's a couple of really good posts. There's one in particular that is 25 different pieces of SQL people use. Take time and dissect because you can kind of figure this stuff out yourself. Go line by line and then teach yourself what each line does.
And the nice thing, so with the SQL as opposed to some of the web pages in the PHP, the SQL hasn't, I mean, the syntax is the same. All that's changed. So even though some of these posts might be a little old, it's still going to be applicable. In many cases, it'll still be functional and should still be perfectly valid for you to use, or use it as a launching point to other things that you're trying to do with RadioDJ.
And that's the thing. Get launching. Get your hands dirty, have some fun, and really create the sound that you're envisioning for your stations, and create some fun features that will kind of wow your listeners and give them a reason to not only listen longer, but listen more often. Patrick, the SQL wizard, the coding genius, the coding Casanova, even some have called you in the darker areas of the forum. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll be calling you again when I get these harebrained coding ideas. So stand by at all hours. Have your computer ready.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thanks again. I'll catch you later.
Definitely. We'll see you in a future video. Now, I don't know about you, but whenever I pull off some circus freak acrobatics with code and RadioDJ, I just want to run off with a Serbian circus contortionist to celebrate. This is just me. Anyway, I am Jeff, the RadioDJ dude, and if you're actually thinking of taking this code for a whirl, well, I'd love to know about it in the comments. Or if you have a great idea for modifying it, well, please tell. I'm all ears. I'd love to hear. Now, if this has given you any ideas of how to infuse a little more creativity into your station, or maybe just opened your mind to the possibility of Serbian circus performers, well, please hit like and subscribe. I promise more high-flying videos without a net are coming up. Thanks so much for tolerating the nonsense, and remember to keep rocking those mics all over the world, baby, or as my Serbian sweetie might say,
Kleba bez motike.